What happens after death? Throughout history, cultures, religions, and philosophers have tried to answer this question, but to this day there's no definitive answer. We explore different ideas and beliefs about what might exist after death from scientific, philosophical, and spiritual perspectives. We'll look at how humans have tried to understand death, and what could happen when we leave this world. 1. Death in different cultures. Throughout history, death has been a fundamental concept in all cultures. Many traditions and peoples have had their own ideas about what happens after death. For example, in ancient Egypt, people believed in an afterlife where the soul of the deceased would face judgment. If the person had lived a just life, they could access the field of reeds, an eternal paradise. For the ancient Egyptians, death was only the beginning of another journey. In ancient Greece, there was the concept of Hades, an underworld where the souls of the dead resided eternally. The Greeks also believed in the judgment of souls, which determined if a person would be sent to a place of reward or punishment. In India, Hindu and Buddhist traditions introduced the concept of reincarnation, the belief that after death, the soul is reborn into another body. This idea is based on the law of karma, which states that actions in a previous life influence the conditions of the next. 2. The scientific view on death. From a scientific perspective, death is the end of all biological functions that keep an organism alive. When the heart stops beating, the brain loses oxygen, and its cells begin to die. This process is irreversible, and up until now, science has been unable to prove the existence of life after death. However, there are documented cases of people who have been clinically dead for a few minutes and then came back to life, experiencing what are known as near-death experiences and NDEs. These experiences often include reports of a bright light, a sense of peace, and in some cases visions of deceased loved ones. Although these experiences are fascinating, scientists have yet to reach a definitive conclusion about their significance. Some believe that these visions could be due to reduced oxygen levels in the brain, while others think they might reflect something more. It's important to remember that science relies on physical and observable evidence. Without proof to demonstrate the existence of an afterlife, scientists tend to be cautious about making definitive statements. But a lack of evidence doesn't imply impossibility, it simply means we haven't found a way to prove it yet. 3. Near-death experiences and NDEs. Near-death experiences have been widely documented and studied today. As we mentioned, many people who've been close to death claim to have experienced things that go beyond the physical reality we know. Common reports include feelings of peace, out-of-body experiences, and encounters with beings of light or deceased family members. A study by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a pioneer in the study of death and grief, revealed that many people who experienced NDEs described feelings of indescribable love and peace. However, these stories aren't the same for everyone, and there are cases where near-death experiences have been disturbing or distressing. While the scientific community hasn't reached a definitive conclusion on the origin of these experiences, some researchers argue that they could be caused by chemical reactions in the brain or a lack of oxygen during the dying process. Others, however, believe these experiences could be evidence that consciousness doesn't disappear with death, but rather transforms in some way. 4. Reincarnation and the law of karma. Reincarnation is an ancient belief that holds that a person's soul or consciousness can be reborn into another body after death. This idea is central in religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. In these traditions, reincarnation is linked to karma, the accumulation of a person's actions and decisions throughout their life. According to this belief, a virtuous life can lead to a favorable rebirth, while a life filled with bad actions can bring suffering in the next existence. The idea of reincarnation has gained popularity in Western culture, especially in recent decades, and some people see it as an interesting alternative to the concept of an afterlife in heaven or hell. Although there's no scientific proof to support reincarnation, there have been numerous cases of people who claim to remember details of past lives. One of the most famous cases is that of Shanti Devi, an Indian girl who, at the age of 4, began recalling specific details of her past life, including names and places of her former family. These details were investigated and seemed to surprisingly match a past life in a nearby town. Though this case remains controversial, it has sparked curiosity and interest in the possibility that reincarnation could be real. 5. Religious beliefs about the afterlife. The world's major religions have developed detailed beliefs about what happens after death. For Christianity, death is merely a transition to eternal life. Christians believe in heaven, hell, and purgatory as destinations for souls based on their actions and faith. According to Christian teaching, those who lived according to God's will receive the reward of heaven, while those who rejected it suffer in hell. In Islam, there's also a belief in paradise and hell, and it emphasizes that each person will be judged by God on the Day of Judgment when all souls will receive their eternal fate. For Muslims, life in this world is a test, and the afterlife is the true final destination where they receive reward or punishment based on their actions. In Judaism, the idea of the afterlife is less specific and varies according to different branches within the religion. However, some Jews believe in a resurrection of the dead or a place of spiritual rest. 6. Nirvana in Buddhism. In Buddhism, the concept of life after death is closely related to the idea of enlightenment. Buddhists don't believe in an eternal heaven or hell as in Christianity or Islam, but in samsara, the continuous cycle of death and rebirth. According to Buddhism, this cycle can only be broken by reaching nirvana, a state of liberation from suffering and reincarnation. For Buddhists, nirvana is true liberation and the end of existence in this world of illusion. Buddhism teaches that death is not something to be feared, but something that can be overcome through spiritual development and understanding the nature of existence. Reaching nirvana means freeing oneself from the bonds of this world and, finally, stopping the cycle of rebirth. 7. The philosophical view of death. In addition to religions, many philosophers have reflected on the nature of death and what might lie beyond. Socrates, one of the great philosophers of antiquity, considered death to be simply a transition to another type of existence. He believed that the soul was immortal and continued its journey after death. On the other hand, German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer viewed death as a release from the will to live. For him, death represented an escape from the constant suffering of human existence. Friedrich Nietzsche, on the other hand, saw death as an opportunity to affirm life. According to his philosophy, by accepting mortality and living with intensity, we can achieve a fuller and more authentic life. 8. The uncertainty and mystery of death. The fact that no one can definitively affirm what happens after death keeps this topic in a realm of mystery and uncertainty. Despite beliefs, studies, and personal experiences, the afterlife remains an enigma for humanity. We may never truly know what happens after death, but simply thinking about it can lead us to reflect on the meaning of our lives and our actions. The uncertainty surrounding the afterlife can generate fear, but it can also motivate us to live more fully and mindfully. Knowing that our life is limited reminds us of the importance of compassion, love, and living with purpose. 9. The influence of death on our lives. Thinking about death can also motivate us to be more compassionate and value what we have. Knowing that our existence is temporary makes us appreciate small moments, experiences, and the connections we create. Many studies have shown that remembering mortality can improve emotional well-being by helping us focus on what truly matters. Death, though unknown and often feared, can serve as a guide to lead a meaningful life. We can see this concept in practices like death meditation or memento mori, an ancient tradition where people remember their own mortality to not forget the importance of living with purpose. 10. The importance of finding our own answer. At the end of the day, what happens after death is something each of us must interpret and understand according to our beliefs and personal experiences. Perhaps the answer will never be clear, or maybe it's one of those questions designed to remain a mystery. What's important is that by reflecting on death, we find an opportunity to live more fully and consciously. Different beliefs, from reincarnation to eternal life, can offer comfort, hope, or simply a way to understand the cyclical nature of life. For some, the idea that everything ends with death may lead them to live each day with greater intensity. For others, the belief in an afterlife encourages them to act with kindness and live according to moral principles. So, what's after death? The answer remains a mystery, and it likely always will be. What we know for sure is that we all share the same uncertainty, which unites us in our humanity. Every culture, every religion, every individual finds their own meaning in this enigma, and all these perspectives give us insight into the richness and diversity of human thought. Although we may never have a definitive answer, the very search for it can give us direction in life. Death invites us to reflect on who we are and how we want to live. It reminds us of the importance of compassion, love, acts of kindness, and living with purpose. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of humanity's deepest questions. Remember, what matters most is not necessarily finding an answer, but learning to live with the question. And as we do, let's keep building a world where each of us can find peace and meaning. See you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, give a thumbs up, and share this content if you found it thought-provoking.